Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back. A familiar face with me, of course. If you've followed the show, listened to the show, Tyrina is, of course, no stranger to Maximize Monday. And I'm glad we could have another one of our episodes, one of our chats here, just because winter break is approaching. And I figured probably a good time to have Tyrina on to talk about transitioning and job seeking during the holidays and how to make the most out of that during an already busy season as it is. So,
Mhm.
not to make life a little busier. Tyrina, how are you? How have you been?
Good, busy, busy.
Yeah,
Helping one educator at a time
yeah,
transition.
absolutely. And some great success stories for you. And we're going to talk about that a little later here. But
Yeah.
if you're not following Tyrina, she's been moving lately. So it's hard to keep up with all the wins you've been having lately. So I'm always
Yeah.
for you and for them. I'm sure it's rewarding from both sides for you.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So as we mentioned, winter break is approaching. And it's been quite some time since I was in the classroom. So always remember kind of that I don't have as many days off now as I used to during that time, but I always kind of remember just like the breath that you take once that final bell rings. But for some people, it's also that popular time because you think, oh, I've got, X amount of days out of the classroom now. It's time for me to really pivot and focus on my search if you're trying to find something new. And with that said, we'll get into some of the insight on that, but just want to go over the advice you give to your clients, just because it's a break, right? They need that break. And so you don't want to spend the entirety of your vacation or your holiday time, just forcing yourself to focus on the search. You want to have some time for yourself, for your families, for your friends, whoever may be in your life as well. So how do you go about coaching them to find that balance of job seeking, but not, overdoing it during this time?
Yeah. Well, this is honestly throughout the entire year, but definitely more essential now during the holiday season of knowing when to take breaks. It's
Yeah.
not too long of a break
Right.
on applying, but I do hold my clients accountable. At the very beginning, I ask them like what their schedule is and applying and all of that. And then throughout our coaching sessions, as especially if I acquire clients around this time of year, it is important to have a schedule around time that you're spending with family.
Right.
So I always say, of course, take off of job searching Christmas,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving,
Right.
you can get right back to it the next day.
Yeah.
But um, I I I don't like to say teach or train, but I encourage my clients to give themselves grace during this time of year. Um, and even with the regular schedule throughout the year, I even tell my clients like, you don't have to job search every single day. You can do something else towards your job search, maybe networking, there's a day you just focus on that or making posts, so recruiters can find you. Everything that you do on LinkedIn
Yeah.
is, something that can be essential to someone finding you, that's looking for your background and experience. And I know you can attest to that being a recruiter yourself. LinkedIn is a very powerful resource. So when it comes to, again, around the holidays, just pace yourself, give yourself grace, take time off, from job searching around the holidays.
Mhm.
Um, I encourage people to, in general, do a lot of their job search at the beginning of the week,
Right.
maybe Mondays, Tuesdays, a little bit maybe Wednesday. And then, as the week gets, later in the week, maybe take the pressure off and kind of take a break with looking, like do other stuff towards your job search.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend people doing that around the holidays as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up good points. It is that popular time to focus on it, but it's also time that they can use to prepare. Because
Yeah.
once the school year starts back up in January, that time goes away. So, while
Hmm.
it's also good to apply and keep up the search network, like you said, it's also a good time to just kind of prepare, put together a plan for what you're going to do January through March and that time frame as well. So, how do you go about kind of putting that plan together for your clients so they can still job search in the present, but also prepare for those months where their schedule is a little bit more hectic back in the classroom.
Yeah. I have check-ins with all of my clients. Depending on what package they get a certain amount of check-ins and coaching calls with me.
Mhm.
Uh, Usually when the holidays are over, like you pointed out, like when the school year starts again, January, they're like reminded of why they're trying to transition
Yeah,
after that long break, especially around Christmas.
right.
And they go back to work, like, oh my gosh. And it's just a really busy time of year, but it's also a great time of year to continue searching. It's a new year. Companies have, new budgets to fill talent.
Mhm.
It is a bunch of things going on. Um, Most of my clients, they find work during the school year.
Yeah,
Slows down a little bit in the summer, even though T Lassiter Services had a very busy summer
right.
with success stories. But generally, throughout the year is when my clients find jobs.
Yeah.
Whether it's ed tech or corporate, either way.
Mhm.
So having that busy schedule, sometimes I'll have meetings and say, okay, what capacity do you have and what time frames do you have to search? So I know by the time you get home, you're exhausted, you
Right.
know. So just having those little pockets of time, doing things towards your job search, whether it's applying, whether it's just looking, you can kind of switch back and forth. Like, hey, you know what? On Mondays, I will look and save jobs. And then on Tuesdays, I will reach out to T Lassiter Services to get support with just making sure my resume is in tip top shape before I apply,
Yeah.
So during those busy times, I encourage people to at least do one or two things towards your job search. You may not be able to apply as much, but at least look, save jobs, make sure you have your notifications set for, to send you jobs via LinkedIn, Indeed. Um, but it is like a very stressful time of year for a lot of educators. So I want to provide the most support as possible.
Definitely. Absolutely. And we said we're going to offer some insight and some free advice this time, and you're always great with that. And so, wanted to do things a little different because you and I have talked about resume prep, resume insight. There's multiple episodes you can listen to where Tyrina and I go over how you can build out your resume and things like
Mhm.
that. And this is kind of a topic we've touched on in the past. I think it was a time you, myself, and Cedric were on the call, and he's
Yeah.
my go-to when I ask about AI, and using that for your
Yeah,
job.
he's amazing when
Yeah.
it comes to
So
any type of technology,
yeah,
software.
for
Like he's
sure.
amazing.
He's the first person I'll ask if I have a
Yes,
question
yes,
like that stuff. So I'll link his profile if you're listening to this. I'll link
yes.
it in
Hi,
the comments.
Cedric.
Yeah, if you're listening too, thanks for checking in with us. But that AI is not going anywhere, and I think a lot of people,
Not at all.
corporations, people, everyone's kind of realizing that, and so I'd like to kind of pose that question to you. How have you kind of coached your clients to utilize that? Because it is a valuable tool, but you do have to kind of be wary about how you're using it, what you're putting in there. I think a lot of people just don't know, that you put your information into Chat GPT, who knows where it goes, right? So
Right?
how do you go about coaching them to find the right tools and use them in the right way to get the most value when they're trying to use it for resume building?
Yeah. And like I'll say this first. It is very rare that I coach my clients on using AI.
Mhm.
If they mention it, like they're very like they love AI, they use it in the
Mhm.
classroom.
Yeah,
I will teach them a couple of things like on resources to use when it comes to AI, Chat GPT. There's a bunch of other softwares out there too.
yeah,
Um, to definitely be careful.
yeah,
We don't use AI to create our resumes, but it is a great resource if you want to review your resume against a job or you want to see how much of a match you are. I mean, we have those services as well, but
mhm,
I find that a lot of my clients like to do things on their own too.
yeah,
I'll train them on certain things and then they'll do it, which I love. I love when my clients take initiative, with what I'm telling them or in addition to what I'm telling them.
mhm,
But I will say, as far as using AI, definitely be careful. You have to test the validity of what it's pushing back out at you because it's not always correct.
right, yeah,
Um, but it is important to utilize it, for certain things in your search. Like I've
mhm,
been doing a lot of research on, what softwares companies use,
yeah,
if they use like an applicant tracking software or, LinkedIn even has AI built into it,
Yeah,
as far as when a company posts a job and on their end they can tell who's a good match just by looking at the keywords.
sure.
So using AI in your search, definitely use it when needed.
Hmm.
Use it for quick things to do like reviews, to get more keywords in your resume, but that human approach initially to build that foundation of your documents or tools is definitely essential.
Yeah,
Teachers don't have a lot of time on their hands,
right.
to the point where I've created a service where we do job searching for you. We create a spreadsheet for you, and we already know pretty much your experience and your
Yeah,
background at this point because we've done your resume, we've had meetings with you. So there are a good amount of my clients who have been in, interested in the job search service where we look for jobs for you, upload them to your spreadsheet. So by the time you get home from class, you can just go into the spreadsheet and start applying.
yeah.
Um, but for those of you that, can't afford career services or afford a coach, AI can be one of your best friends.
Hmm.
It can help you to create content. It can help you with ideas. It can help you with, matching your skills. But again, doing your own research on top of that is really important.
Yeah.
So when I do have those meetings with my clients that are very privy to ChatGPT, I do show them how to use it effectively and carefully,
Hmm.
especially once their resume is done by my staff, my writing team. And it's been a very, very good help, like
Yeah.
great help
Yeah.
with, some of my clients. Now, again, there's a good amount of my clients that aren't privy to using AI and how it works. So I do coaching on like how it works. But I don't push people to use AI, if they're not privy to it. Now, you made a very, very good point earlier. AI isn't going anywhere.
Right.
It's only advancing literally like by the second. It's
Right.
advancing. So I do encourage those educators who aren't privy to AI and are interested in transitioning to ed tech, any ed tech positions or tech positions. You will start to see in your job search, especially if you're just starting, that they want you to have some type of knowledge of how AI works
Right.
because it's being embedded everywhere,
Yeah,
especially in ed tech and classroom management tools.
sure.
So I have been sending my clients trainings that they can take either via Coursera or LinkedIn to kind of sharpen up their skills, or they can learn more about how to use AI in the classroom, AI in learning, AI in the, in this, current market,
Right.
any of those type of trainings that you can take would be great just for your own knowledge on how it works and how it can help you even in the classroom,
Yeah,
even if you're not transitioning.
definitely. Definitely. And a good general rule, when we've talked about this before, like if you hire a resume writer, you want to make sure you're studying what that resume writer built for you in your resume so you
Yes.
can speak to it. Similarly with AI, if you don't just copy and paste everything and hope for the best.
Yeah, I would advise not. You can
Right.
have like maybe different versions of your resume created by AI, but
Yeah.
your master resume, your main resume, that foundation should be created by a human being, and then just having AI maybe make tweaks.
Yeah.
That's what
Absolutely.
I would advise. Because and then maybe I don't know. It makes me nervous sometimes when
Mhm.
people use AI for the all of their documents and don't really change anything to their voice because some of these companies can tell,
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
and the
Absolutely.
market's already hard enough,
Right.
so you don't want anything else coming up in your search.
For sure. Yeah. Creating more issues for yourself that you don't need.
Yeah. Hmm.
So another point that you brought up, and this is a good one, is the importance of networking. And again, these are past episodes that you and I have done where we do deep dives into networking. And I think one of those topics we just kind of scratched the surface on. So wanted to revisit that a little bit, just because as January approaches, this is a time when there's more conferences, there's more hiring
Mm,
events, there's more career fairs,
yes.
and these aren't always free events to attend. So how do you try to go about coaching your clients, finding the right things that they should, if they're going to invest time and money into these things, finding the right ones for them, as well as getting the most out of them. You don't want to just go to career fair and then hope that people are going to come up to you and say, hey,
Right.
stranger, I'd like to talk to you and hire you today. Like, how do you go about,
Yes.
putting yourself forward in those situations? Because that's not the easiest thing. It takes a lot to build up that courage to, put yourself out there like that. So, I mean, give some insight in terms of how you best prepare everyone for those situations.
Yeah. I love this question, especially this time of year, because you're absolutely right. There have been more events, job fairs, either virtual or in person. I actually just coached a client last week. She had a job fair in her area, and there were going to be a lot of companies there. And they sent her preliminary information about
Yeah.
like what companies will be there. So one of the first things that we did in preparing for that is just going over the companies and what they're hiring for right now.
Mhm.
Because this way we could create some tailored resumes for her to take with her once she goes to the job fair.
Sure.
So we prepared that, created one or two resumes for her, like main master resumes that highlighted her overall skills for the two type of jobs that she was seeing on the websites.
Hmm.
Another thing that you should prepare for is your elevator pitch,
Yeah.
which is very similar to like the tell me about yourself. But elevator pitches can also be on the general side too, to just introduce yourself, talk about, what you're transitioning into overall. Why are you transitioning? Um, and mention maybe some of the companies that you're looking for,
Hmm.
at the job fair. You
Yeah.
can even practice specific elevator pitches as well for when you do meet those individual companies, those representatives that are going to be there
Yeah.
representing, certain companies that you've already gone online and saw what they're applying for.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of times, this is like the first time that my clients are going to these events. So they're already nervous. They don't really know like how they should approach, the table that
Right.
companies are at in their little booth. It can be very
Yeah.
intimidating because people
Absolutely.
are walking around and they've probably been to, a good amount of job fairs, and you're sitting here like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. You could be there by yourself. You
Right.
didn't bring a friend with you. So it is important to even have note cards if you need to reference, some things.
Hmm.
Again, having your copies of your resume, a good amount.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a lot of companies there, they may want to keep your resume on file.
Hmm.
You want to make your impression memorable.
Yeah.
So really going over your resume, reminding yourself of your experience, doing that research behind the scenes of what companies will be there and what they're hiring for. So then you are prepared as far as your elevator pitch and speaking to some of those skills.
Yeah.
Of course, dress to impress,
Hmm.
not in jeans and a t-shirt or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's a given. But a lot of people, just like in with interviews, they're really nervous.
Hmm.
So whatever you have to do to kind of crush that nervousness a little bit, it's okay to be nervous, but turn it into confidence.
Yeah.
They're judging you every step of the way. Introduce yourself, shake hands, eye contact, like all of those things matter. Like treat it like it's a informational interview,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. Make sure that you're, speaking to your skills, first and foremost. Um, Another thing that I did with my clients to kind of help you stand out, a lot of times companies have like a QR code that you can scan,
Yep.
that, you know, all of this with the new technology.
Right.
So there's a good amount of apps that create QR codes for you that will connect companies to your LinkedIn page, to your resume. Like if they rather have digital information from you, you can create a QR code that takes them to these places,
Hmm.
and they would have that.
Yeah.
So I also coach my client on creating a QR code that has easy access to her information as well.
Yeah.
So I could
Definitely.
go on and on about like the tips
Yeah.
for events, networking events, and job fairs. Like first impressions are really everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the QR code is such a good call because I mean, I do like to get a paper resume when I'm at career fairs just so I can look over everything and not feel like I'm staring at my phone. But if you have the
Right.
option to have both of those, that's always a good thing because the paper resume obviously will come with me, but if we can make that real time connection, that's going to be pretty
Yeah.
valuable as well.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what your district looks like this time of year is also where some, people who are thinking of transitioning out of the classroom may have to make that decision. Wherever contract renewal is, that's certainly times. And you and I have talked in the past about the right way to go about if you need to break from the contract, how to do that properly. But I'm sure it's a question that you get a lot of what should I do? How should I approach this? And clearly you can't make that decision for them, right? So
No,
how do
that was. I'm
you
glad you said it before.
right, right. So don't reach out to Tyrina and say, "Hey, should I break my
Yeah,
contract? Should I
I
renew?"
no.
Because that's
for
not a
for legal reasons too,
right.
at that too,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
yes,
That it is important for me to, you have, as a coach, any coach out there that is watching this video,
mhm,
it has to be their decision.
yep,
um things are financially connected to
mhm,
these decisions,
definitely.
and so what I usually do is just weigh the pros and cons.
Mhm,
I don't get this. Here's the thing, because of who I serve as far as transitioning educators, most of the time when I acquire them as a client, one of the first questions I ask them is like, are you okay with breaking your contract if you get a job offer during the year? And I will say 95% of the time they're yeah, absolutely.
mhm,
Absolutely. Because they're so stressed and
yeah,
so mentally drained that they're willing to, take that chance. And it's very rare that I have clients come back to me changing their mind and wanting to go back into the classroom,
mhm, yeah,
um, usually the grass is greener,
mhm,
on the corporate side or ed tech side. 99.9 of my percent of my clients
right,
love what they're doing now or have progressed from the first role that I helped them get
mhm,
into.
yeah,
Um, but that is something that has to be totally up to them. But again, the way we navigate it, we weigh the pros and cons. Some districts, it is a mark on your record if you
sure,
quit,
yeah,
during the year. Every district has their own rules,
mhm,
so they have to weigh the pros and cons or speak about the pros and cons that we've narrowed down with their family, with their
right,
spouse, with their children, with their, it's a family decision,
mhm,
um, because I do get those questions sometimes, like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't like what I do? It's like, well, I'll just keep helping you,
right,
like I do check-ins with clients. I actually just started to do like video check-ins, and I'm going to start posting, their experience like a month or two into their new role, just to give encouragement to other people who may be kind of hesitant with transitioning during the school year, where they may
right,
have to break their contract. Because I will say, during the year is where, like I said, most of my clients are finding jobs. It slows down a lot in the summertime.
mhm, yeah,
There's more competition in the summertime because all the teachers are
right,
all the time in the world to,
yeah,
apply. Again, we had a busy summer. We had a lot of success stories over the summer. A lot of
yeah,
companies were still hiring. Um, but it's definitely important to realize like what, or write down what the consequences may be of, not renewing your contract.
yeah,
I definitely suggest too having those conversations as early as possible, maybe with administration. And I know some people can't do that. I
yeah,
get it.
mhm,
Sometimes principals, assistant principals, whoever you speak with, may not be as receiving
right,
or happy for you for bettering your life.
right,
I've heard some really sad stories about teachers not really getting support when they're trying to, better their mental health and try to do something else.
right,
So, at the end of the day, these are the relationships you build. You have to make a decision on, whether you want to take that chance or you want to stay another year.
mhm, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, last question, and we referenced this earlier, and you mentioned, over the summer as well. I think there was a run. Last time we were on, I think you had done like 10 transitions in like
Yeah, in the summer, it was
it's
crazy.
crazy, crazy.
I
And
had like 10 or 11 clients in August, which is
yeah,
usually our slowest month,
right.
usually for success stories.
Yeah.
But I had about 10, 11 clients get job offers in
Yeah.
August. It was amazing.
Yeah, and you haven't slowed down at all, and obviously you post about the success stories. So if people are following you and are connected with you, they can see those. But wanted to give some time because you, again, these are topics that you and I cover, and not limiting yourself when you're exploring opportunities. If you're going to transition out of the classroom, so many people see education or learning in the job title, and they narrowly kind of just keep in those paths. So I wanted to see if you can share some other success stories you've had recently that maybe didn't have those words in the job title that other transitioning educators can think to explore as a potential if they're kind of capped out on opportunities in ed tech or L&D at the moment.
Yeah, because that definitely is a popular industry to transition into, like learning and development on the
Mhm.
corporate side, and then ed tech, like implementation specialist, customer success.
Yeah.
Those are really, really popular titles that a lot of educators are going into.
Mhm.
Um, and when I first onboard a client, we have an onboarding meeting ahead of time. We're already narrowing down roles for them. We send them homework to do before I actually meet with them, just to make sure that the roles that we're selecting for them resonate with them.
Right.
And they usually do. It is very rare that they're like, "Oh my gosh, why did you choose this for me?
Right.
This is nowhere near any of my experience." So we're usually on point for that. So the first thing, honestly, with my success stories, because they have variations in the type of titles that they're going after, we established that it is important to be open.
Mhm.
Don't just narrow yourself down to learning and development or instructional design or customer success. There are other roles out there, project coordinator, even under the umbrella of sales. A lot of people have this misconception of sales, that every title isn't about, or every job description isn't about you being on the phone all day like a call center and you're just
Right.
making cold calls.
Mhm.
Recently, I had my 1 month check-in with a client who transitioned to a sales associate role with Imagine Learning.
Okay.
And we knew, about the role, of course, and what it entails. She had at least 3 or 4 interview rounds where we got to ask a lot of questions.
Mhm.
So I was glad that she was open to a sales type role, and she didn't have any background in that
Yeah,
previously.
definitely.
So we updated her resume, cover letter, of course, prepped her for interviews. But this sales associate role was perfect for her because it wasn't just about making sales.
Mhm.
It was about really establishing those relationships with clients in these school districts. It was a bit of training involved, so not so much L&D, but more so just showing what their products and their curriculum can do for that school district at a time.
Right.
Um, and so this sales role was different because she's not on the phone all day. She's not, calling people that she hasn't built a relationship with.
Right.
She gets to go to events. She makes goodie bags for them. She talks with other teachers. She's like the point person, if they have more questions.
Mhm.
So I do advise people being open to, roles that could fall under the umbrella of maybe L&D, or on the ed tech side, an implementation specialist role.
Sure.
Um, some of my clients are, directors, in
Yeah.
their departments, um, project management, project coordinator. I've helped a lot of counselors get into like community,
Okay.
type roles, like,
Yeah.
community advocate, family advocate. There's a plethora of the different type of roles. Anyone that's not following me yet, I know Matt's gonna, tag all of my pages. Go to my LinkedIn page and see what my clients are transitioning into. And you will
Mhm.
find that they will give you more ideas of what you can add to the mix of the titles that you're going after.
Yeah, absolutely. And good segue because at the end I always give you the chance to tell people where they can find you, where they can follow you. And you're very active across all socials. So where can people connect with you if they're curious to hear about the success stories and wanting to hear more about the services that you offer?
Yeah. So TikTok and Instagram, I'm Ed Transition Navigator. post a lot of reels on what companies are hiring right now. I'm trying to do more face to camera type videos,
Mhm.
especially on TikTok. So definitely check those out. I give a lot of tips on networking, updating your resume, your job search, the whole nine, as well as on LinkedIn, Tyrina Lassiter on LinkedIn. And my website, if you're interested in hiring us or just exploring what type of services we provide, it's www.tlassiterservices.com.
All right. Well, as always, Tyrene, it's a pleasure. I'm always thankful for you taking some time to jump on here and share some insight and some wisdom to the transition educators. Is I promise you will not be the last time you see Tyrene on the show. So
Absolutely.
look forward to
I'm
the
a regular at this
yeah. At
point.
this point, we just probably have to set up a cadence for it.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone for watching, for listening, for connecting with us, and continue to send us questions, things you want to hear about, and we always love to have ideas. If there's something that you're curious about, thinking of transitioning, you'd like us to cover, let us know. We'd be happy to do that in a future episode.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.